This lesson will teach me to understand and discuss what factoring is and why we factor. So, done with the first half of this unit, starting the second half of this unit, and we're going to start with something called factoring. So the purpose here is for you to kind of figure out why are we switching gears and what's the purpose of what it is that we're going to start learning. Here's some definitions for you. What is factoring? Factoring is finding out what was multiplied together to make an expression you are given. So for instance, if you're given the expression x squared minus 16, I want to know what was multiplied together to get that. So we've factored before. If you think about 12, well, what numbers were multiplied to give you 12? 3 times 4, 6 times 2, 12 times 1. Work the same way, except now we're working with polynomials. Why do we factor? We factor to break down a complex problem into smaller pieces. Think about some of the answers that you've gotten. They've got x squares and x's and numbers and even bigger things all over the place. So if we can take something that looks rather long and break it back down into its pieces, it's going to help us do some math later down the road. And that takes us to number 3, standard form versus factored form. Standard form. We've discussed standard form before. Standard form is when you have your problem, your polynomial, ordered so that its pieces have go from the highest exponent all the way down to the lowest exponent. So the polynomial is ordered, so the highest exponent goes down to the lowest exponent. So x squared plus, I'm totally making up these problems, 2, 1, none, is standard form as an example. Factored form is when you break it down into its pieces. Factored form is very often going to use parentheses. You're going to break things down to find, well, what times what gave me that standard form. Standard form and factored form are interchangeable. To get from factored form into standard, well, this is where we learned about all the double distribution and stuff like that. Now the second half of this unit is going to show us how to take the answers that we have been given, things like x squared minus 16, and figure out, well, what was in those parentheses so that when I double distributed, I got my answer. So these forms will be interchangeable, but right now we're just kind of working with, well, what are they? So standard form, it's your polynomial ordered so highest exponent down to your lowest exponent. Factored form is going to use parentheses, and these are the things that were multiplied to make whatever your standard form was. All right, so in that table below, I want to kind of explain how you're going to do this and what the expectation is. For this particular activity, you're going to be using Desmos. It's an online graphing calculator. You can use Desmos on any device. It's free from your app store, or you can use Desmos online. I've got my computer handy and you can see it, so I'm going to go ahead and get to that point. I googled Desmos or go to desmos.com, and I'm going to go ahead and start graphing. When you pull Desmos up, you have a graph on one side, and you have the ability to enter however many equations you want over here. First thing that I'd like you to do is to get your factored form into standard form. So notice, factored form for number 1 has a set of parentheses. These are the two things that are being multiplied. Well, multiplied to make what? That's what you need to figure out. Multiply them and put your answer in standard form. Now, whether you graph 5 times x minus 3, or, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold on. Before we graph, let's name the standard form by degree and number of terms. Well, its degree is 1, so it's linear. It has 2 terms, so it's a binomial. Binomial. All right, now we're going to graph, and we're going to find the x-intercepts. When you go to graph, you can graph either. Let me show you how to graph, where to go. Here it is. All right, so whether you type in your factored form or your standard form, you'll get the same graph, but because it's a graph, you need parentheses. I'm also going to type in, and you don't have to type both, so y equals 5x minus 15. Notice it's the exact same line. So don't type in both, just type in one of them. All right, so it says sketch the graph. When we go to sketch this graph, let me get this over here. There we go. When you sketch, it's kind of a loose interpretation. Oh, rats, I wanted that to stay up. It's kind of a loose interpretation, but there still need to be some things here. So I still need that x and y axis. Let me pull that graph back up. I need to know kind of where it's crossing the x-axis, 1, 2, 3. And then if you could also show me the other key feature of where it's crossing way down here, it's crossing the y-axis at 0, negative 15. All right, so here's my little sketch. It's crossing at 1, 2, 3 here. But it was crossing at, what was it, negative 15? So negative 5, negative 10, negative 15. And connect. So the purpose of a sketch isn't for you to just go like that. Like, yeah, okay, that's a line. You need to give me some key features so that I can at least remember, or you could remember, or we could discuss what it looked like and where it might have hit in different places. And then the other thing, x-intercepts. I'm not asking for y-intercepts. Notice it's only asking for x-intercepts. Where it crosses the x-axis was 3, 0. All right, go ahead and give number 2 a shot. You can try it on your own. Label everything, sketch it, find its x-intercepts, use the graphing calculator so you can get your graph. I want to show you a different shape. So let's look at problem number 3. It's in factored form, meaning those are the pieces that made what? They made the standard form. So I'm going to go ahead and double distribute. This is going to give me x squared plus 5x plus 3x plus 15. So when I finish this up, there's my standard form. What's its name? It has a degree of 2, so it's quadratic. If you don't remember these, just find your notes and look them up. Has 3 terms, so it's a trinomial. Now I need its sketch. So I'm going to go to Desmos. You can clear the equation that you already had graphed, or you can just use the line underneath of it. Whether you use the factored form, oops, forgot my equal sign. See that little thing out there? It's trying to tell me that I did something wrong. There. My graph's way up here. I can just click and drag. Or whether I use the standard form, whatever you think it's easiest to type. Don't do them both. It's the exact same graph. All right, so this is a U-shape. We call it a parabola, if you have heard that word before. But ultimately, it's a U-shape. What's nice about Desmos is see those dots, and when I hover, if you were to actually click on them, they make them bold. So these 3 key dots that Desmos thought was important enough to kind of highlight for you, those need to be drawn on your graph, on your sketch. I'd really like to, if you could give me where it crosses. So we've got where it crosses the Y. I've got a couple important points where it crosses the X. And there's also that little bottom point down there. So let's give this a whirl. I may have to go back and forth because I can't remember anything. So U-shape. The U-shape is crossing the x-axis at what 2 points were those? Should probably write them down. It was -3, 0 and -5, 0. I gotta get a smaller pen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then what was that low point at the bottom of the curve? Let me find my shape. Let's see, it was -4, -1. So I'm going to go back and sketch that. negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1. And then where did it cross way up here? 0, 15. If I want to get that on my graph, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You'd probably count by something else, but that was already being counted by ones. So you gotta kind of stay consistent and give it the best shape you can. Mine's not beautiful. Whoop. Arrows on both ends, but you can see where it crosses on the Y, where it crosses on the X, and where it crosses right there. I've already given you the ordered pairs of my x-intercepts. So go ahead and do number 2 if you haven't already. Go ahead and do number 4. This video is not going to do it for you. Tomorrow in class, we'll finish it, so please don't do the whole thing. But the purpose of this video was to kind of give you some instructions so you had an idea of what was happening before you got to class. Thank you for watching. Let me know what questions you have.